Welcome to this deep dive into one of the most pivotal and enduring stories of modern history. The creation of the State of Israel and the ongoing Israeli-Palestinian conflict have shaped global politics, culture, and countless lives over the past century. Understanding the story means uncovering layers of history, faith, struggle, and resilience.
So let's get into it and explore how this complex story began.
The story of the founding of the State of Israel and the Israeli-Palestinian conflict is a deeply complex narrative, shaped by centuries of history, religious significance, imperial politics, and human tragedy. To fully understand this story, we must travel back to the late 19th century. At that time, the Jewish population was dispersed across Europe, the Middle East, and North Africa, often living as minorities facing discrimination, persecution, and violent outbreaks such as pogroms in the Russian Empire. These violent attacks, along with rising nationalist movements across Europe, fueled the urgent search for a safe homeland. Theodor Herzl, an Austro-Hungarian Jewish journalist and political activist, is often credited as the founder of modern political Zionism. He was deeply affected by the infamous Dreyfus Affair in France, a wrongful conviction of a Jewish army officer based on anti-Semitic hysteria. This event convinced Herzl that Jewish assimilation in Europe was impossible, and that Jews needed their own sovereign nation to guarantee safety and dignity. In 1897, Herzl organized the first Zionist Congress in Basel, Switzerland, which gathered representatives from Jewish communities worldwide. The Congress adopted the Basel Program, committing to the establishment of a publicly and legally assured home for the Jewish people in Palestine. This marked the political crystallization of the Zionist dream, although religious and cultural connections to the land of Israel had existed for millennia. Meanwhile, Palestine was an Ottoman province, predominantly inhabited by Arab Muslims and Christians, with a small Jewish minority. The arrival of the Zionist movement introduced a new dynamic to this multi-ethnic society. During this time, the wider geopolitical context included the decline of the Ottoman Empire and the rise of European imperial powers. British, French, and Russian interests competed in the region, setting the stage for future colonial mandates. The first Aliyah, starting in 1882, brought approximately 25,000 Jewish immigrants, mostly from Eastern Europe and Yemen, fleeing escalating anti-Semitism and pogroms in places like the Russian Empire and Romania. These pioneers faced difficult conditions, settling largely in rural areas and founding agricultural communities such as Rishon LeZion, Zikron Yaakov, and Petah Tikva. They battled diseases like malaria and had limited resources. Despite hardship, they planted the seeds for a new Jewish society. The second Aliyah, 1904 to 1914, brought a more ideologically driven group, inspired by socialist and labor Zionist ideas. Figures like David Ben-Gurion, Beryl Katznelson, and Golda Meir arrived, emphasizing collective farming through kibbutzim and the revival of Hebrew as a spoken language. The creation of the Histadrut, General Federation of Labor, in 1920 was a major milestone in organizing workers and providing social services.
Eliezer ben Yehuda was a key figure in transforming Hebrew from a liturgical language into a vibrant, everyday spoken tongue, a crucial cultural foundation for nation building. Jewish immigrants established institutions such as the Jewish National Fund, JNF, to legally purchase land, but this often caused tensions with local Arab tenant farmers. At the same time, Arab nationalist consciousness was emerging in reaction to Ottoman decline and foreign intervention, complicating the political landscape. World War I drastically altered the region's political map. Britain and the Allies sought to weaken the Ottoman Empire, which sided with Germany and Austria-Hungary. Britain made conflicting promises during the war. The McMahon-Hussein correspondence suggested Arab independence, while the Sykes-Picot Agreement secretly divided the Middle East between Britain and France. In 1917, the Balfour Declaration stated British support for a Jewish national home in Palestine. Signed by Foreign Secretary Arthur Balfour and addressed to Lord Rothschild, it was a brief but monumental letter. The declaration pledged that nothing shall be done which may prejudice the civil and religious rights of existing non-Jewish communities, but it failed to define the political status of Arabs, raising fears of dispossession. Palestinian Arabs, including leaders like Haj Amin al-Husseini, the Grand Mufti of Jerusalem, strongly opposed the declaration. The Mufti became a central figure in organizing political opposition, later controversially collaborating with Nazi Germany during World War II. a point of deep historical contention. Arab protests and political movements began to form, demanding independence and opposing Jewish immigration. Following World War I, the League of Nations formalized British rule over Palestine under the Mandate system. British policies vacillated between supporting Jewish immigration and trying to maintain order among the Arab majority. Jewish immigration surged, particularly during the 1920s, as Europe experienced turmoil, pogroms, and later, Nazi rise. Arab resistance escalated into violent riots. In 1920, Nebi Musa, 1921, Jaffa, and 1929, Hebron and Jerusalem. These outbreaks killed hundreds and deeply entrenched animosities. The 1930s witnessed the Arab Revolt, 1936 to 1939, a sustained insurgency against British rule and Jewish immigration, marked by strikes and guerrilla warfare. Britain responded with military suppression and political efforts such as the Peel Commission, 1937, which proposed partitioning Palestine, the first official suggestion of dividing the land into separate states. Zionists reluctantly accepted it. Arabs rejected it outright. The British White Paper of 1939 drastically limited Jewish immigration at a time when Nazi persecution intensified, a betrayal felt bitterly by Zionists. During this turbulent era, the Haganah, the main Jewish paramilitary force, grew stronger, preparing for eventual independence and defense.
The Holocaust's systematic extermination of 6 million Jews exposed the devastating consequences of statelessness and vulnerability. Jewish survivors, displaced persons, and refugees sought safety, many aiming for Palestine despite British restrictions. The Aliyah Bet, illegal immigration, smuggled thousands of Holocaust survivors into Palestine, often intercepted by British forces, leading to international sympathy and controversy. The horrors of the Holocaust strengthened the global Zionist cause, highlighting the need for a Jewish homeland as a refuge. Post-war, figures like Chaim Weizmann lobbied the United Nations, emphasizing the moral imperative for statehood. The British, unable to solve the conflict, referred the issue to the UN. UNSCOP proposed partitioning Palestine into Jewish and Arab states, with Jerusalem under international control. The plan allocated roughly 55% of the land to the Jewish state, despite Jews being a minority population. Zionist leaders, including Ben-Gurion, accepted the plan as a pragmatic solution. Arab leaders rejected it, viewing it as unfair and illegitimate. Violence erupted immediately between Jewish and Arab militias. Neighboring Arab states vowed to intervene militarily. Israel declared independence on May 14, 1948. Arab armies from Egypt, Jordan, Syria, Lebanon, and Iraq invaded the next day. The war was intense and complex, involving not only formal armies but also irregular militias. The conflict resulted in massive population displacement. Approximately 700,000 Palestinians became refugees in what Palestinians call the Nakba, catastrophe. The war ended with armistice agreements, but no peace treaty. Israel controlled more territory than initially proposed by the UN. Israel faced the challenge of integrating waves of immigrants from Europe, North Africa, and the Middle East. Political leaders like Ben-Gurion and Weizmann built democratic institutions. The new state developed infrastructure, education, and military forces, despite continuing regional hostilities. The history of Israel's founding and the Israeli-Palestinian conflict is a story of hope, struggle, tragedy, and resilience. It shows us how deeply people's identities and histories are intertwined with the land they call home. Despite decades of conflict, efforts for peace and coexistence continue. Understanding the complex roots of this story is a crucial step toward empathy and dialogue. As we look forward, it is important to remember that behind every headline and every statistic are real people, with dreams, fears, and hopes for a better future. The journey toward peace in this region remains one of the world's greatest challenges, but also one of its most vital hopes. Thank you for joining this exploration of history. May knowledge inspire understanding, and understanding inspire change.